be very, very quiet. I'm hunting weapons.
Destroyed an enemy ship.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. Today we are once again looking at one of the new and upcoming British battlecruisers. And this is Tier 4. It's classified as a battleship here, but yes, it's obviously a battlecruiser. This is the Queen Mary, named after the wife of King George, and funnily enough, built I think in the same batch as the King George V class of battleship. The Queen Mary was, I think, the last battlecruiser that was actually constructed before the First World War, and as such has been, well, not used in her intended role, because the British were using the battlecruisers as ship of the line, which did not work out very well. She was in the Battle of Jutland. I'm going to pronounce it Jutland just because I'm speaking English right now, and that's the way that things are pronounced in English. If I'm talking about the capital of France, I'm also not saying Paris, but I'm going to say Paris. So I might as well say Jutland, although in German it'd be Jutland, and I think in Danish it'd be something like Jylland or Jutland. So relatively close. Anyway, we're calling it Jutland for everybody to know what it is. And she was up together with her sister ships against the German High Seas Fleet. And she took a shell to one of the forward magazines, which blew up one of the secondary magazines, which basically just blew the ship in half, and then she sunk with almost all hands at that time, leading to, well, the whole idea of battle cruisers being more like raiders, or things that were fast enough to escape things they couldn't fight, but then being used as ships of the line, obviously not working out too well. The whole idea then got somewhat scrapped relatively soon after that. But the Queen Mary was an actual existing ship, and since we're at Tier 4, a ship that probably I haven't been participating in the event because I was on holiday, but I would assume that either some people got her for free out of some crate or event thing or whatnot, or that when the line of ships actually comes out, that some people will be getting the ship as an entry at some point. And as such, it's always good to talk about some of the lower ships, especially those that actually existed. So enough waffling. Let's get to it and have a quick look what the earlier battle cruisers are looking like. So again, we have a mildly concerning turret layout, concerning in such that we have the C turret or the X turret, depends on how you're seeing this. Maybe it's a Q turret, who knows? In between the superstructure bits, which generally tends to lead to the infamous turret bug. So once again, we might be affected by that here. And what we'll see, we have 4 main turrets and probably torpedoes. So let's go and explore this. In terms of comparison, who are we going to compare her to? Well, it would make sense to probably use, and I haven't actually set this up because I don't actually believe I have the Tier 4. Hang on, give me a second here. Well, technical difficulties. That would be the Tier 4, would not be the Iron Duke, it's the Orion, yes. I have fond memories of HMS Orion. The Orion was a great ship to play at Tier 4, because it's Tier 4. And that was just amazingly fun. I've done very well in the Orion on my personal account. The Queen Mary has 2 engine boosts, which the Orion does not have, because traditionally the whole ship skill business tended to start around Tier 5, but this has been slightly modified. Armor-wise, yes, it is a bit weaker than on the Orion, but it's not that anybody's going to accuse the Orion of being particularly well armored. That said, the Queen Mary has a little bit more hit points and a significant amount of more speed. And that is something that, especially at this tier, I trade very, very happily. Simply because it's tier 4. And you are, well, you're going to face a lot of people who are relatively new to the game. So tier 4 battles, or in similar tiers, tend to involve a lot of aimless milling about and shooting at whatever happens to be in view at the time. So having a fast ship with a decent amount of firepower is something that's actually a good thing at tier 4, because that allows you to get, well, if you cleared up, let's say you cleared up one flank in the Orion, and then you realize that your team has completely faltered and has died on the other side, but you don't have the speed to get over there in time to do something about it. That's not quite the case with the Queen Mary. You pay for it with a little bit less armor. Obviously, one of the turrets is something that you're not getting. And even though these guns are technically the same, they are not quite as good. Although the differences are somewhat marginal. You get a little bit better, worse range. You get a second on reload in turn. And much to my joy, you get a little bit better turret traverse than you actually get on the Orion. So that's a good thing as well. The secondaries are, for all intents and purposes, identical, only that you've got a couple more of them, but honestly they don't make a huge amount of difference. 4.6 kilometers is a very short range. You do, however, get torpedoes. Yes, but they do almost no damage. So they're kind of cute, and you will see me doing things with them, but this is not a torpedo boat for obvious reasons. This is a battlecruiser. The AA is absolutely dreadful, but that's also classic tier 4. The concealment is pretty good with 8 kilometers. Even though that's the case, I would probably not build for concealment at these low tiers, because it just doesn't make an awful lot of sense to do that when everyone's aimlessly milling about anyway. But let's get back to the Queen Mary, where we are. There we are. Okay, so how can we set the ship up? You did get the choice. Well, you don't get the choice. There's one elite bonus that makes sense, and that's the elite gun operator for obvious reasons. Nobody cares about 7% or torpedo damage reduction. In case you're not aware how this works, this is not percentage points. So it's not that your torpedo damage reduction is going to increase from 10.5% to 17.5%. No, it's 7% of 10.5%. So multiplicative, not additive. So yeah, forget it. Useless. The equipment, we can, given that we are enjoying a 6 degrees per second base turret traverse, can use the mainboard mod 2 for a faster reload. And then other than that, it's the standard setup. You can't even build for concealment because you were in tier 4, but even if you could, I probably wouldn't, because with this, we are getting ourselves, and this is nice, no historical camo, because I don't think there is any at tier 4 either. But we're getting to a very, very workable 11-second turn time, a 15-second time to full speed. That is, for a battleship, is quite nice. And we have an almost 19-second reload on these guns. These are the same 343mm guns that you find on the Orion, technically. Although on the Battlecruiser, the armor piercing tends to be a little bit better than on the battleship, just because that's the gimmick. And with a 6.4 degrees per second turret traverse speed, that is very workable as well. And yeah, the concealment, there's not an awful lot we can do about this. So I've deputized a captain, tier 4, so level 4 captain. I'm just assuming that somebody comes in with a relatively fresh captain here. Obviously, if you had somebody, you would use the air defense expert in preparation for, if you wanted to, in preparation for the higher ship tiers. There is a bit of a discussion. I'm going saying, you know what? Actually, it would be better to use Victorious Charge and Torpedo Alert. And yeah, you can. I mean, these ships aren't AA ships. Even the higher tiers aren't. But I figure you can still, put in whatever you can and boost that, rather than having a little earlier warning on torpedoes. But that's up to you, completely up to you. And then otherwise, we would do an HP build for obvious reasons, and eventually the APCS and the horizontal protection expert. But we're in tier 4, and I'm assuming that's what people are come in with. Camo wise, yes, there is no historical camo, So we may as well just slap the Seaborne Assault on that. Or use whatever free camo you have. It's tier 4. It's not all that important. So you are at the beginning of the line, more or less. You have made your way through HMS Indefatigable. I love the British and their naming of ships on sometimes. My favorite is still HMS Unruffled, and I think that was a submarine, so we're not going to see that in game. But you've made it to Queen Mary. So let's take a look at the Queen Mary at tier 4. Our first game is I think a complete tier 4 game, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, there's a South Carolina and a Kawachi on our team. But the enemy team is completely tier 4. Base capture on Scorching Islands against an Ishizuchi, Kaiser, another Ishizuchi, a Gangut, a Wyoming, a Svetlana, and an Iziaslav. So mostly battleships. And we will see how this works out. The one thing that I'm mostly curious about, and yes, I'm not going to do a maxed setup because that'd be kind of ridiculous, because no one's going to have that. So there's no historical camo anyway, and you really don't need to try hard that much at tier 4. But I am spawning with the Duguay Trouin, and I believe is another Queen Mary right next to me. So we'll roll up this flank and see what 2 battle cruisers can make happen there. You do get the 2 engine boosts, and they're quite nice, but even without the engine boost, you're doing 28 knots at the onset, which for something that has 343 millimeter cannons at this tier is quite nice. So we'll give some fire support to the Duguay Trouin and see what we can get ourselves up to here. Now, Sailing around the flank like this, it obviously works out with the turrets, because I've got them oriented in one direction and they stay there. It gets difficult once I'm pointing the turrets further forward. But we have spotted the Iziaslav, which is a Duguay Trouin problem of sorts, but there's also an Ishizuchi, and I think we can use the engine boost at this point and get ourselves a little closer and make something happen against all these battleships that our only cruiser is sailing right into. Well, this is tier 4, so these sort of things happen. And as you can see, the dispersion is can be a little hilarious, to be honest. And to nobody's great surprise, the Duguay Trouin is dead, which means that the Iziaslav now has free reign of sailing down right in the middle into the friendly capture circle. Presumably that's what he's up to, unless he's going in. But we're sort of engaged here, and I'm not risking going back on that one. I'm going to help the other friendly Queen Mary here and taking some fire, but it's holding up so far against these ships. So let's see if we can take down the Wyoming. Wyoming is not a bad ship. It's dreadfully slow, because everything American at these tiers is dreadfully slow, but we do need to get ourselves a little bit closer to make something happen. And yes, I do realize I am drawing myself out from the battle a little bit, but the problem obviously here being that the center is pretty much falling. So we may have to do something about that Ishizuchi that comes through the middle. So let's go defensive against the Wyoming. Friendly Queen Mary is turning, and we'll slow down, call target on the Ishizuchi, and see if we can focus fire that thing down. I have no idea where the Iziaslav is. He hasn't been spotted since the Duguay Trouin basically suicided into the whole enemy team right at the onset of the battle. But let's do what we can and try to get the Ishizuchi down, and then we'll make a run for the enemy capture circle and hope that the Iziaslav is trying to farm damage rather than just going for the cap, because that thing is only, I believe, a tier 3, and that the Gangut has taken him out. Gangut is sort of, oh no, the Iziaslav is coming around the other side. Okay, so it's a rest of the team problem. And here you see the turret bug in action, because my Q turret is out of alignment, obviously, because I've been looking not sideways. So I'm going to go forward, engine boost up, and deal with that Wyoming. Ow! Yeah, these things hurt. No, do not have the best armor here. I can get my torpedo away. Yes, that is singular, torpedo. And see what we can do. Let's aim for the deck armor, although aim with these guns, I mean, it's World War One guns, right? They're not the most precise here, and yeah, that Wyoming really hurts if you're this close. So hopefully we can get the torpedo away and see if that together with the 2 forward turret can finish him off. Nice citadel, torpedo hit, and the bugger is still alive. Okay, so that means I'm gonna take another salvo from him, unfortunately. Yep, before I get him down, which gets me down to 4,000 hit points, but well, that's 4,000 more than you need. Unfortunately, at this point, the Itziaslav has planted himself in our cap circle, so we're gonna lose this. We're gonna lose this towards caps because there is no way we're gonna counter cap in time. So also there's a Kaiser sitting in the enemy capture circle, sitting still, by the way, not doing anything, just sitting there and occasionally pressing fire. Well, he's blocking the capture circle, which is not a terrible idea. So we can farm some damage on that thing, but there's no way we're going to win this because the enemy team's going to cap us out before we get there. But this is the sort of strategic consideration that you can actually have in a tier 4 battlecruiser that has not the armor, but the firepower to inflict some serious amount of pain and the speed to get around the map relatively quickly. Now, we could have, tried to retreat back and clean up the capture circle, but, you have to make these kind of decisions and see what you see what you can get done. Unfortunately, at this point, they've capped us out, so no way of brawling this German battleship to death, but yeah, there we are. And the Svetlana takes the MVP, but I think we did a decent amount of damage. Not quite as much as I would have hoped for, but that's because the battle was also cut a little bit short. But you can see that the main guns on these ships are quite fun and powerful. You don't get an awful lot of them, and yes, you have the Q turret bug, but not bad. Which leads us to our second battle, which is again base capture on Scorching Islands because it's tier 4 and Scorching Islands is happening quite a bit at this tier. This time it's a 5v5 against Dante Alighieri, Ichizuchi, a Turen, a Svetlana, and an Isokaze. So off we go and see what we can do this time and see if we can manage to deal with destroyers, because there's a fair amount of destroyers in this game. And obviously you are a British battleship, British battle cruisers. She doesn't have quite the same amount of HE power. And as you can see, the AP is actually preloaded, which is good because you should be using the AP in most cases, unless you are fighting destroyers at close range, in which case the HE is a better choice. But she doesn't get the same high explosive gimmick that the main battleship line gets, where the armor piercing is underwhelming at times and the high explosive is very, very good, such that until the advent of Italian battleships, the British battleships were the uncrowned terrors of the seas against destroyers, because they came preloaded with high explosive. Okay, Svetlana is the biggest threat for our destroyers, so that's the primary target. Let's see if we can get that thing sorted out. Plus, I think that player won the last round, so let's get him out of the way, because I have 2 of my destroyers basically suiciding. This is tier 4. You can't expect anything, but they're basically suiciding into Svetlana, and who has taken a lot of torpedoes, but even if he hadn't, is now very dead. So suiciding goes both ways. And that means we have now the Ishizuchi, who needs to dodge the remaining torpedoes coming in there and avoid becoming the next victim of the Isokaze sandwich that was just murdering the Svetlana away. And we do have, however, an enemy Isokaze there. Yes, I see you. Yes, I will be with you momentarily. Right now I'm about to torpedo the Ishizuchi and see what we can do on that thing. Nice citadel there. I probably should have manual aimed, but honestly, we're not try-harding here, right? It's tier 4. And that thing is already dead, so we can... he's going to run into all those torpedoes. He's already dead. You can have that kill. Well done. And that was the Clemson. Clemson is a very, very good little destroyer. I think probably one of the best destroyers at that tier. And the Turen is also running into all the torpedoes. And there is an Izokase out there. He was not looking at me, but is in a gunfight with one of ours. So I can probably get out of here. And look at that, we're actually not over-penetrating the armor piercing that much. So he's just taken a crap load of damage. Now he's in the turn, so he's probably getting to... Yep, there come the torpedoes. So full on reverse, hard turn left, 10 second turn time. Yeah, nah, it's not happening. There comes the second torpedo spread, and he's run into an island. So now we're just going to go forward, turn the ship the other way, kill the Isokase, dodge the torpedoes, and be done with it.
Enemy ship live.
Yep. That's how that goes. Anyway, at this point, we're at 5-3, and we can probably either finish off the Turenne or help with capping. But either way, the enemy destroyers are not. Enemy destroyer isn't going to try to go for the capture circle. Turenne is dead, and that is that. So, what's good about the Queen Mary? Well, she's fast. And as you can see, you can get yourself into positions where you can do things like defeating initial or help with initial rushes, like help with a destroyer rush at the onset of the battle and take out a couple of light cruisers. I mean, if the Svetlana hadn't run into all the torpedoes, then I would have blasted him out of the water. But that's something you can do. You can actually engage enemy battleships. You do have to be a little careful with managing your hit points because, yeah, armor isn't the greatest, but the guns are nice. And the turret bug is there, but it's not that pronounced because the forward angles are very, very good. So you see here, you can be at a relatively steep angle and still have all the guns on target. So it's not super impactful. And as you can also see, these 343s can smash quite a bit. And again, you have to be a little bit careful with the return fire, but this is a fun ship. I think the speed advantage, especially at this tier, if you know what you're doing, is giving you a really big edge of bringing firepower to bear at a point where it's needed, rather than playing, I don't know, like a standard class battleship or standard type battleship and bimbling about at 19 or 21 knots and not getting anywhere really. So this is a good ship. And obviously the fact that bots were coming at third and second place in the respective teams is telling you something about how mid-tier is working really. But yeah, so all in all, this is a fun ship. But then again, most ships are fun at tier 4. What I really enjoy about it is the speed and the ability to bring some firepower to bear at places where it's needed. And that is the Queen Mary. Like I said, up till tier 7 so far, I mean, I haven't tried 5 and 6, but up to tier 7 so far, it's tier 7's been great. And not so super convinced with the tier 10, but, you know, you don't have to grind to tier 10 on every single line. Anyway, so that's it for me today. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.